Hello, welcome to Career Launchers channel for law aspirants. We're continuing our series on reading comprehension. We'll be talking about how to solve RC passages, how to answer questions quickly, accurately, and effectively. Right? So, if you're watching a recording of this session, then pause or mute my voice, read the passage on your own, solve the questions on your own, and again put on the video so that you can hear my explanation and my summary of the passage. All right? Okay, let's start. This passage I have taken from the business and economy genre. It's about 420 words. It's related to something very current. Let's quickly read the passage and then summarize it and read the questions. Trade wars are not fought with missiles and tanks, but their impact can be just as devastating. They unfold through numbers, policy maneuvers, and political bravado. The latest salvo, a fresh round of tariffs proposed by Donald Trump, an economic cannonball threatening global markets and trade alliances. So basically, he says that wars can be as dangerous as proper wars and he's referring to the latest tariffs proposed by Donald Trump. It this These tariffs that the US proposes to impose on other nations is threatening global markets and trade relationships with the US. Tariffs are among the oldest tools in a nation's arsenal. Before free trade pacts, empires used them both as shields and swords, protecting domestic industries and retaliating against rivals. The British Raj perfected this strategy, drowning out Indian industries with predatory tariffs. So, tariff is like a tax, like an extra tax that is imposed. This is the oldest economic tool, and the Britishers used it against Indian industries in the in, independence period. Post independence, India learned its lesson, used tariffs to protect national interests and industries. Today, history repeats itself. Only now the battlefield is global. The stakes are higher and the players are deeply interconnected. So, what happened in a small example of what the British Raj did to India is now being played on a global level because Trump's tariffs has changed the game, and in an interconnected economic world, these stakes are really high. Trump's fresh tariffs, 25% on imports from Canada and Mexico, 10% on China, have reignited economic brinkmanship strategy, economic games. What began as an America First policy is reshaping global trade, forcing governments and businesses to rethink strategies. Unlike traditional tariff realignments, Trump's approach is swift, unilateral, and unpredictable. Now, you've had nations who've had tariff realignments. A country will say, I'm going to impose a tariff. But in Trump's case, what is different is it's very quick, it's swift, it's one sided. He's not even asking the other country involved or warning them, and it's unpredictable. So, the fallout, that means the consequence, higher import costs, disrupted supply chains, and uncertainty for multinational corporations. Industries across North America, automotive, electronics, consumer goods, face rising costs which may be passed on to consumers. With foreign competitors taxed, domestic manufacturers facing less competition often raise prices. Some estimates suggest that the tariffs could add up to 3,000 to the cost of a new car in the US. Meanwhile, economies like Canada and Mexico, where trade constitutes nearly 70% of GDP, they stand to suffer significantly because Canada and Mexico have the highest trade with the US and they're dependent on the trade on US. For them, these tariffs are going to have a great impact. Bloomberg Economics estimates that a 25% tariff could cut Mexico's GDP by 16%, sending shockwaves across Latin America. China, however, has diversified its economic dependencies. Its exports now constitute just 37% of its GDP, down from 60% in the early 2000s. While tariffs will affect China, Beijing is more insulated than before. Beyond economic costs, now these are the economic costs of tariff. But beyond economic cost, what is the other negative? They erode trust. How are you going to trust a trade agreement with the US? Again, trade agreements, painstakingly drafted over years, now appear fragile. If deals can be overturned overnight, why invest in them? The global economy risks developing a free for all. So it's a free for all is a fight where there are no rules. So the global economy now seems to be totally chaotic with no rules at all, free for all, dictated by political whims rather than mutual benefit, which is not what trade and economics is supposed to be, right? It is should be based on a cost benefit analysis, should be on a win-win situation based on mutual benefit. Now it seems to be ruled by political whims, political whim of one president of a very dominating country. Retaliatory tariffs loom, threatening a full-fledged trade war. If you can impose tariffs on my products, I can also impose tariffs on your products. So a retaliatory tariff war will start, and then there would be a full-fledged trade war. Now, the last paragraph is interesting. India watches with confidence. As the ninth largest contributor to the US trade deficit, it has been on Trump's radar. Yet, India sees opportunity in disruption. With China facing barriers, Indian exporters, especially in electronics, textiles, and pharmaceuticals, could step in by lowering custom duties and strengthening trade ties. India is positioning itself as a stable alternative to China. Trade wars end with negotiations and realignments. For India, the path forward is very clear: stay resilient, negotiate smartly, turn uncertainty into economic leadership. So, in the last paragraph, the author says that the situation is beneficial for India. If India plays its cards properly, then, as in if it stays resilient, if it negotiates smartly, and it can take economic leadership, then the situation will be beneficial for India. This is the passage. Let's look at the questions. What is the central theme of the passage? All right, whenever you're doing the questions, again, answer the questions on your own, mute the video, answer the questions on your own, and then again look at it. What is the central theme of the passage? India's strategies in the trade war set off by Trump. This is only the last paragraph, one of the points mentioned by the author. Can it be called the main point? No, it is too narrow and specific. The impact of trade wars on global economies. He's talked about uh, Mexico, Canada, China, and India, right? So this seems to cover everything. The advantages and opportunities afforded by trade wars. This is again the last paragraph only. Trade wars can be more devastating than actual, as devastating, he says, not more devastating. Therefore, the correct answer is option B. Question 2. What is the author's tone in the passage? So, how did the author go about it? First, he talked about trade wars and what are they and what are the consequences. Then, he talks about Trump's latest tariff policy, how it is going to impact Mexico, Canada, China, and India, and concludes by saying it could be beneficial for India. So the tone can be called analytical. He looks at the situation, looks at the consequences of the situation. Therefore, it's analytical. It's not alarming. He is not criticizing anybody. It's not predicting what's going to happen. Therefore, the correct answer is option A. Question 3. Which of the following cannot be inferred from the passage? Now we want, that means three options can be inferred, one cannot. Trade wars can offer opportunities for emerging economies like India. We can infer this from the last paragraph. Trade wars can realign global trade relationship. Yes, this also throughout the passage the author says that. Trade wars create economic uncertainty and disrupt supply chains. Yes, the author has mentioned. So A, B, and C can be inferred. Trade wars can be more destructive. No, can be as destructive. He did not say more destructive. Therefore, the option that cannot be inferred is option D. Question 4. Which of the following assumptions is implicit in the first paragraph of the passage? Let's quickly look at the first paragraph and then we look at an assumption is what is taken for granted to be true for the claim to be true. Trade wars are not fought with missiles and tanks. Their impact can be just as devastating. They unfold through numbers, policy maneuvers, and political bravado. A fresh round of tax proposed by Trump is an economic cannonball. It threatens global markets and trade alliances. So, what is the author's assumption here? Trade wars are unique in form and consequence. He didn't say that nothing is like this. Trade war has unleashed again a unique form of trade war. No. Trade wars can cause severe economic and geopolitical disruptions. Yes, first paragraph. He's saying that they're going to cause it. That means he's taking for granted that they can cause it. Okay, the recent trade war could transform into a full scale traditional war. He didn't say that trade wars normally end up in or even imply that it leads to traditional wars. Therefore, C is the correct answer. Question 5. Which of the following, if true, would weaken the author's claims about the impact of trade wars on India? What did the author say about the impact of trade wars on India? China is not going to be as affected by it as it would have been in the early 2000s. Still, India could take advantage of that, and that India stands to benefit. In China's absence, India could fill in the gap. That's what he says. So, what would weaken the author's claim? India's export sector, especially electronics and textiles, have always been of global standards. Then it's not going to weaken his option that India is going to jump in the vacuum left by China due to the high tariffs. India's export sector cannot scale production to replace China. So the author's argument is India can be an alternative to China. If this is true that India's export sector cannot scale up production, cannot replace China because its production cannot be scaled up, it cannot produce such numbers as China did, so it cannot be a viable trade alternative to China, that would weaken the author's claim most. China's export sector has witnessed both an increase and decline. It is not about China's export sector. Indo US relations are at an all-time high. This would strengthen the author's argument, not weaken it. Therefore, the correct answer is B. Question 6. Which of the following can be concluded from the last paragraph? Last paragraph, he says India can take advantage of it, right? So, India aims to leverage global trade disruptions. Yes. India must focus on resilience. If India can be resilient, can stay resilient, and negotiate smartly, that means we can conclude that if it must do these two. India is on the verge of becoming a leading manufacturing hub. Yes, then therefore all of the above, because it says if India can do it, then it's going to take advantage of the trade of the tariffs imposed by Trump to become the alternative to China, which is the manufacturing hub of the world now. Therefore, D is the correct answer. Here, the answer should be D. Okay. Now let's go to the vocabulary. Lot of words used here. Let's see how good your vocabulary is. Select the correct meaning of the words, following words from the passage. It could be a show of political bravado. Bravado is not bravery or courage. Bravado is a false show of courage. So A is the correct answer. What is salvo? A sudden aggressive attack, a peaceful negotiation, a defensive strategy, or a slow gradual process. When you hear a lot of bullets being fired at the same time, that's called a salvo. So a sudden aggressive attack or a sudden aggressive series of attacks is a salvo. So the closest answer is A. What's arsenal? All your weapons put together. Your stock of weapons is called your arsenal. A collection of weapons. Option C is the correct answer. Question 10. What does predatory? Who is a predator? One who eats his prey, right? And the opposite is prey. So predatory tactics means aggressive, harmful tactics. tactics, right? So protective and nurturing, no; random and unplanned, no; mutually beneficial, no; exploitative and harmful. That is the meaning of predatory tactics, predatory policies. Okay, insulated. That earlier China was vulnerable, but now, because the trade is only a lower part of its GDP, it stands insulated. Insulated means protected from outside influence. Okay, therefore A is the correct answer. What does fragile means? Fragile means something that is weak, something that breaks easily. If you notice, you see those packages where they'll say fragile, handle with care. If you're taking something which should not be thrown in airlines, they say be careful with this package because it's fragile. Fragile means something that is easily broken. Therefore, D is the correct answer. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that passage. I hope you got most of your questions right. Join me again next week at the same time. If you have any questions, do put it in the chat box. We will answer all your queries. If you have any inquiries about our course, about our sessions, do call the number on your screen, 8130 038 836. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel, share, like this video, and share it if you liked it. Bye.